We are live right now. YouTube, Twitch, now our fine arts panel. I believe this is our 5th year of having fine arts panels. We always feature artists from all across the globe. Best for the most unknown, not because we show up everybody their artwork is real. Today on our panel, we have Danny Simmons, we have Chris, and we're about to have WAK, who is literally tuning in right now. We're about to connect. I'll let each one of them quickly introduce themselves. Danny, go ahead.
Hey, my name is Danny Simmons. I'm a visual artist and an abstractionist. I've been in the game for maybe 35 years painting. I'm in a bunch of museum collections, and I do comic books probably. I also run an art gallery where over the years, I've had a number of shows of artists doing comic book art. The last one we had was curated by a comic book artist named Williams in my gallery in Philadelphia. So, and I have one of I'm happy to be on this channel. Were you able to hear me?
Connection.
Maia, can you hear me?
Not really.
Oh.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Did you hear my
I heard some of it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot.
Oh.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yeah, it is. I think it was her connection.
Yeah, I think it's her, not us. Anyway, I'll go through that again. See that? Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? My name is Danny Simmons. I'm an artist, a visual artist. I'm not a comic book artist, but a lot of my inspiration comes from comics. I have an art gallery in Philadelphia. I recently had a show of comic book art over the years in my galleries in New York, and here I've shown comic book artists many, many times. I collect comic books, comic art, and I'm just happy to be here. And I also have a great piece by my man Chris here up in the room where I have all my comic figures and everything else. So, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey. WAK pulled up.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Hey, what's happening? What's happening?
Ain't nothing, man.
Finally.
No, you ain't late. You on right on time.
I know, right?
Introduce yourself now.
Sure. So my name is Chris Herod, and I'm a visual artist. I have really been doing artwork pretty much as long as I can remember, of course, just like everybody else here, I'm sure. Have a real affinity for comic book art. Have been a comic connoisseur and collector forever. Was gifted a giant box of comics when I was about 9 years old. A bunch of golden age stuff from a neighbor of mine, a mentor of mine, and spent my time really, learning from Neil Adams and John Byrne and all of those starting out, and kind of develop my work as my tastes have developed, of course, and really see my work now as being more on the political sphere. So started taking notes from Napoleon Jones Henderson, from Vicky Meek, from Afra Cobra, from Emory Douglas, from Aaron Douglas, from a lot of different folks who started to capture things about our people's plight. And so really that's kind of my concentration. It's been my concentration.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Kevin WAK Williams.
Well, I'm Kevin Williams, based here in Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Chicago. Been a full-time artist for the last 39 years. Started at the age of 16 as a cosmetology illustrator for Soft Sheen Hair Products in Chicago. Been self-published as an artist, created a urban affordable print line in 1995. Still publish and distribute that line for the last 25 years now. It's been pretty successful for me. Converted and transitioned into more fine art in the last 10 years. Most of my subject matter is history based. And sometimes social, political, self-love, self-preservation, so on and so forth. So just glad to be here with you guys.
Okay. Each because I picked you up for a reason. What made you decide to?
Yeah, I can't understand anything you're saying. You're breaking up a lot.
I'm staticky.
Real staticky.
Am I static? Am I staticky now?
No.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. When you want to do your what makes you consider it Black culture as a whole, like all of
it's gone again.
For that.
It's cutting in and out again. We didn't hear it.
Well, wait a minute, because I don't want this to keep happening.
Yeah, it's almost like your Wi-Fi isn't streaming good.
Let me see. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, y'all go ahead and talk.
You gotta give us a question.
Well,
because I don't.
I was gonna say it's oh, are you back?
Yeah, y'all can hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did y'all hear what I asked? I said, what makes you all decide to center your artworks on African culture as a whole? Can you
artwork on what?
I said, what makes you decide to center your artwork on African culture as a whole?
Oh, okay. I'll try it first. I mean,
let's break it up.
Me or her? The question was, what makes us center our artwork on African culture?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, I started out maybe 35, 40 years ago. And for me, my artwork was centered around the modernists. And I started looking at modern art, as most people did in the beginning, because that's what was pushed out there, like Picasso and things like that. And I began noticing the African influences in it. And so I naturally followed through reading and whatnot, where they got this aesthetic from. And I began to adopt it in a more authentic way. Actually, one of my first shows was named Reappropriation because of that fact that I learned African aesthetic from the modernists, but I reappropriated what they had stolen from us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not stolen, but yeah, I guess stolen is a good word. I work with that. And so, and as I went along in the beginning, my work was more figurative. And as I went along, I started noticing the pattern. I'm an abstract artist now and have been for the last 25 years. I started noticing the pattern in tribal facial paintings and body paintings and in textiles and on houses. And that drew me in more, and I collect African sculpture. as information. But what really drew me in was the patterning and the abstraction, the natural abstraction that came out of Africa, if you want to call it abstraction. A lot of it is storytelling, but it comes across as abstraction when we see it through a European lens. And unfortunately, that's what most Americans have. Even if we revere that sort of art, we don't really know what a lot of it means. At least I don't. I know that I enjoy and I feel the patterns, and I feel an affinity to them. But if I look at a Mabudi painting or tree bark painting, I don't necessarily understand the journey that they're painting about. I feel the movement, but I don't understand the underlying tenets. I would never thought that.
What about you, Danny?
That's who was just talking.
I'm sorry. What about you, Chris?
well, for me, the situation has always been such that I've always had I'm motivated by my people and the well-being of my people. And so I've taken my notes from, books that I've read, and really that's kind of what drives my work. So, whether it's me discovering Fanon or me reading the autobiography of Malcolm X for the first time, all of those things brought to the fore the fact that I needed to put forth work that fully represented our people, that moved us into a situation of self-improvement. And so all of my work is really kind of been fueled by African people, just because that's who I am. That's what I'm motivated by. I'm motivated by our self-improvement and liberation.
And what about you, Mr. Williams? What makes you decide to culturally center your artwork on historic African people and African American people? Because you're definitely known for that and very passionate about that. So what drives you to be like that and to have that as the center of your focus? Oops.
Yeah, just growing up in Chicago, on the South Side, I went, to a big high school there, a vocational high school, and it was next to East 87th Street was the largest Black-owned business district in the country back in the 70s and the 80s. And I did work for a majority of the businesses on that street. So everything that I always created was centered around us as a people and for us and our businesses. My father was an educator. He was a mathematician, and he bought these ebony pictorial encyclopedias that he gave me as a youth, and to learn our history. And that really inspired me to just really submerge myself in representation of us as a culture. And I just been committed to that from day one. It's pretty much, I feel like, the most authentic thing that I can create.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of flack for, having MECCAcon predominantly black on top of black. And, as I tell everybody every single year, that is not about to change anytime soon. I'm very unapologetic about it, because if I don't help my people, then how can I help everybody else? Because everybody starts with my own first. So I'm always attracted to artists of all calibers, of all genres, where they center on their own culture first and foremost. And as far as the fine arts, first of all, am I still staticky?
No, you're better.
Okay, good. As far as the fine arts community, a lot of people don't like to use that term. I'm just using it loosely today. As far as the fine arts community, one thing I'm always interested in are artists who not only just do portrait art or not only just do quote unquote abstract art, but you're doing it in a specific direction. You're doing it within a special means of like Danny said, like Bobby Danny said, like you're telling a story. Just like Chris Harrod, he does his artwork and he does portrait artwork, but I wouldn't call them caricatures. I would call them his own specific style. And what made you all individually start your own style? Like, what made you all bring your artwork to the point of the direction that it is now?
You know, I'm gonna start out because I heard him mention his dad. My dad taught Black history to me before he even started teaching on a college level. When he was still working for the Board of Education, he taught us Black history from the jump. So I grew up with a Black consciousness from a very young age. I was out on the picket lines with my father. I was at demonstrations at the age of 6. So was Russell, and he was 2. And my father would take us because we needed to know. We needed to learn. So we grew up in the struggle. We saw him arrested, beaten, taken to jail, and we felt pride in that. So, you know, when I started painting as a living, because my mother painted, my father was a writer. You know, both of them had good city jobs, as they called them back then, or still do. But, you know, my mother painted around the house. So I watched her style, and her style was, you know, she represented Black people, but in a very European way. But when I started paint, like I said it earlier, I tried to take the natural essence of what I first saw in European modernism and bring it back home to the African aesthetic. But to find my own style was very important to me. And I began emulating artists as I moved along, Norman Lewis, other Black artists, Wilfredo Lamb, who's an Afro-Cuban artist. And I looked for the spirituality that I saw in the art that we were creating as Black people. And that's where I started looking for myself. You know? And I found, to make the trend, my earlier work was figurative abstraction, sort of like Picasso type stuff. But, you know, I found that when I was looking at the African textiles and African artwork, there was always a dot somewhere, the patterning and dotting, and on bodies, on houses. And so I found the dot to be a point of spiritual reference. Boom, I'm here. The dot said, boom, I'm here. And I'm going here, I'm going here, and I'm going here. And so that's when I started figuring out my own style, to follow dots and patterns to create an abstraction that was different from other people. I was very conscious as I went along in my art practice to make something that I thought was my own, that really represented me and my spiritual feelings about who I am and where I come from, instead of emulating somebody else.
That's very important, though. You know, that's very important. You know, everybody can't do the same thing that everybody else is doing, and why would you want to? You know, that's my whole point. Why would you want to do something that everybody else is doing? What about you? What about you and Kevin? What made you all bring yourself to the style that you all are at now? Because like even Kevin's artwork that I've been following for 500 years, like it's changed so many times, and right now it's at a specific space. But what about you two?
Did you want to go first, Chris? Or?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Well, my initial influences were, you know, from the comic books. You know, as a kid, I started with the Marvel stuff, and then I came across the Frank Frazetta. And once I saw that, I really started moving more towards a more defined style of art. At the same time, simultaneously, my father, you know, my parents were bringing home the Ohio Player album covers and the Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I was seeing this celebration of beauty and spirituality and fashion. You know, all these images I was seeing, and you know, the platform shoes and the afros and the dashikis, and you know, it was just something I was seeing at home that made me very, very, very aware of the beauty. I was very seduced by that, and that's where a lot of sensuality came into my work. Was basically Ohio Player album covers. When I would see them, they were so hot. It was just like, am I supposed to be seeing this? You know, and so I was a fan of Michelangelo, and I came across books of his work in high school. And it was just a mixture, kind of when I was born and when I was growing up and what I was seeing. And so my early work, like the mid 90s work, is a mixture of the 70s and Michelangelo. Basically, that's what that is. If you look at it, that's exactly what it is. I did them in nudes because I wanted it to be timeless. I did natural hair because I had worked with the beauty industry and I didn't want to make specific styles on the heads to date the images. And so we're working in that beauty, fashion, and just being on the south side of Chicago. I really didn't venture out into the inner city until a lot later, in life. So everything around me was just dipped in chocolate. So that's just basically what I did. That's just been my. I'm just into it. I don't know what to say. I just have such a connection with and a pride with it. But my style is definitely a mixture of all of that. I got introduced to Black artists a lot later. I was probably in my 20s before I actually started to recognize and see other Black artists. Charles White definitely is an influence. John Biggers is an influence. And then I met like Paul Goodnight, who became a mentor, and even Gilbert Young worked with me, and Carl Owens out of Detroit, the mentor that worked with me hands on. So I started being mentored by these great artists who weren't really trying to change me, but just expose me, and that's where all this melting pot of imagery comes from.
Okay, what about you, Chris?
Well, for me, Kevin, you kind of touched on
than they do.
Oh, it does?
Mm-hmm. Can you
hear me at all?
Yeah.
I can. Oh, okay. So, Kevin, you kind of mentioned those ebony encyclopedias. Absolutely had a huge influence on me growing up. Spent a lot of time looking over those books, and it was really amazing to me at a really young age. One of the, getting into comic books, like I said, was kind of the early influence for me. What really kind of changed me aesthetically, even at that young age, was seeing the Parliament covers, actually. Overton Lloyd became a friend and a mentor of mine in the late 90s. But seeing his work for the first time, contextualized African people as superheroes for the first time for me in a real way, not in a tokenized, trivialized way. So even at a really young age, that really influenced me to kind of create my own characters and everything else like that. So I was really doing that at a young age. As I grew older, of course, my work is really an amalgamation of all of those influences that I talked about earlier. I really, over the last, 10 years or so, well, a little longer than that, probably about 15 years or so, I really started to get into the psychology of influencing people. And so, finding out exactly what those kinds of things would be visually that I could represent, make a point, and move people to actual action was really my motivation. So I started to study advertising. And, speaking of Chicago, the Burnett Agency, founded out of Chicago, the first Black agency there, their work in the early 70s actually really kind of influences the work that I'm doing right now. So,
you're known in the advertising community, aren't you?
Well, I don't know about known, but that's the space that I play in. And professionally, I'm in branding and marketing as well. But in terms of the work that I do, it's kind of a facetious take on consumerism and ads, and really trying to appeal to people's consciousness, whether it's about the ongoing police brutality, systemic injustice. All of those things are kind of captured in the ads that I create. So, fine arts absolutely has influenced. Fine artists have absolutely influenced the work that I do, whether it be White or, Biggers or Catlett, too many to name. Now WAK and Simmons as well have influenced my work. So, that's kind of the space that I play in right now.
Since all three of you all, and I knew this before, but since all three of you all are so heavily influenced by comics, and this is a predominantly comic convention, what are your favorite Black comics? I'm petty. What are your favorite Black comic series and why? We on the same team all day. All day. What's your favorite Black comics that y'all like, either past or present?
Well, Brother Man is my number one. Power Knights by Keith and Jones, who was a former classmate of mine at Cal Arts. The list goes on and on.
Shout out to Keith and Jones and Cali.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would. I mean, for me, it would have to be Brother Man. Just being a colleague and a friend. That's when I really got turned on to the Black comics and had just a certain level of respect for the depth of his talent. Just an amazing brother, amazing talent, amazing storyteller.
Yep. Shout out to Dawood and Guy, who are the co-creators of Brother Man, based in New York. What about you, Danny?
I'm going to go back a little further. The Milestone comics were I remember buying, even before Milestone, I remember buying the first Fantastic Four with the Black Panther and was so excited about that. I remember looking through Marvel comics to see if I saw Black people in the background and this, that, and the other. But Black Panther still is at the top of my list of comic book characters that Black.
Mm-hmm.
I remember also buying the first issue of Storm in the X-Men when she came around. But at first, when Milestone first came out, I didn't necessarily, because I didn't like DC. For some reason, after I was a real little kid, I was a Marvel guy. But I went back and started reading the DC Milestone series, and that was great. And I'm still going back and buying back issues of that and catching up with some of those characters because I didn't read them fully. As far as present, I'm reading Suri. The Black Panther Takeoff. I think that's a good book, and I'm waiting to see what happens with Kevin's with Chadwick's death and Suri taking over as the Black Panther, which is an interesting conversation that's going on right now. But Milestone Comics really made a big impact on me. The fact that we had a Black comic line imprint within that comic book line.
And they're re-releasing soon, and
This is what I heard. Yeah.
They released, I think, a snippet or a first issue, I'm not sure, yesterday online through DC Comics. So shout out to the entire Milestone Comics team, Derek Dingle, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, Reggie Hudlin, whole squad, and everyone that's been participating in Milestone 2.0 that they call it now.
Oh,
let me mention Bitterroot too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Chuck Brown, David Walker, Sanford Green, Darren Bennett, wonderful team as well. I have all of them over here.
And the Love Brothers too. They're from my hometown.
Who's from your hometown?
The Love Brothers.
Oh yes.
They're from my hometown, so they do great work too.
Yes, they do.
Bayou was one of my favorite.
Yes, they do. And that's what I love, that that you all understand the connections between fine art and comics, because a lot of people don't really, they don't grasp that. A lot of fine artists, they look down on illustrators. You know what I mean? But then you have fine artists, like you all have artists like you all that understand that art is art regardless. You know what I mean? Whatever type of genre of art, you're still creating. So however someone chooses to create, it's power in that in itself, especially if you are centering it on culture or the advancement of your people. What are you all working on individually right now, or do you all have any events coming up?
Um,
Projects you all are working on, any online installations, studio presentations? What do you all have going on right now? What are you all working on?
My biggest thing right now is, this is the 25th year that my foundation, Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation, and Rush Galleries have been around. So we're working on, we were going to have a big party in the Hamptons where we usually raise our money, and that didn't happen because of COVID. And so now we're switching lanes to a November 21st online auction and online fundraiser gala called Art for Life. And so this making the jump from having an event to having a virtual event is something. We just hired a virtual event team, and I put together a board of hosts, and I'm collecting art for the art auction. We're collecting art experiences. So, after 25 years, I find it amazing that we're scrambling just to keep, even though the doors are closed, we have 4 virtual programs going on. So just to keep those going and keep staff paid and all of that stuff is a challenge because of this COVID thing. I hear 1/3 of all Black small businesses, which is what this is, have closed because of COVID. And so I do not want to be, my whole concentration right now is making sure that Russia is not among that number.
Indeed. And you all have put so much work in. It's like, if unfortunately that does happen, you all definitely contributed to your community. So we thank y'all, period.
No, thank you.
What about you, WAK or Chris?
Well, currently I'm just in the studio, just vibing and trying to just basically be used as to reflect the times right now. So I'm working on some very emotional, intense pieces right now. I won't get too much into them, but they're definitely reflective of the temperament of today. So yeah, I've been going through an emotional roller coaster over here.
The last piece you did, Chairman Fred, was ridiculous. Like, I don't even know if you had just did that piece. I think you did though. Wasn't that a new?
It was a remark on a limited edition, right? Piece. Yeah. It was just a small rendering. Yeah. But I'm working on some things some things I always wanted to do, but now that the world has kind of slowed down a little bit, I'm having the time to really put into some pieces and some major works that have been escaping me for years. Just because of your regular schedule pre-COVID. So I'm able to just kind of slow it down and really submerge myself in my work. So can't wait to show it. I guess it'll be done when it's done.
What about you, Chris?
I've been building my Instagram game up. So a lot of the work that I've been doing, it's really just kind of going directly online. I'm trying to get out as many ideas as I possibly can. And they kind of just, in the world that we live in today, I have no shortage of material to kind of comment on and work on. So doing that, really been working with my wife. She started a theater company 25 years ago with some friends of hers, and the only black theater company in Dallas for many years. This is the 10th anniversary. Soul Rep Theater, and so I'm working on marketing. I'm the marketing manager for them. Just did a website revamp, and they allow me to kind of express myself creatively. So in both writing and in painting for posters and things like that. So we have a virtual year coming up, virtual season. So I've been working on posters and everything else like that.
Yeah, I was telling Danny before you all came into the live stream how much I'm obsessed with your Betty Davis pieces, just ridiculous. Because she doesn't get enough love. Jessica Care Moore elevates the Betty Davis more than anybody on the planet. You know, so shout out to Jessica Care-Moore, a famed poet, spoken word artist, playwright. You know, shout out to Jessica. But like, yes, Betty Davis is everything. So anytime I see an artist give respect to Sister Betty Davis, that's just, you know, that means a lot. That means a lot to us because that woman was excuse me. You know, she's a whole being. You know what I mean? I just love seeing how artists incorporate different people of our culture who are so powerful. But did you all want to say anything else before we leave? Is there anything that you all think that is important for our community to know about you all individually?
Not about me, but about you and this whole platform that you do every year. I think it's really important that we have.
Thank you.
No, seriously.
Thank
we
you
have
very much. It's stressful, but you know, I love y'all and I love my blackness. So you know, whatever I can do at whatever capacity I can do it at, you know, I always try to give back to my community. You know, it's a lot to do it, but you know, it always makes me feel better knowing that I myself am doing something, you know, to give back to my community and make my community and my people more progressive, you know, by any means necessary, period. So thank you for even, you know, acknowledging me in that, because I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was honored to be invited. I appreciate it. And just the fact that I was on your radar really meant a lot to me. So, to be in such great company with both Danny and WAK, I'm just, you know, like I said, I'm overwhelmed. It's pretty amazing to be able to sit down and be amongst those folks who have, you know, that you draw influence from.
Mm-hmm. And I always harass WAK about doing stuff, Mr. Williams.
I apologize, you know, to you personally, you know, because you know, things have just been, it's been complete chaos. So, you know, I'm sorry I had to, you know, be driving back home and all that, you know, on the live. But, you know, hey, you know, I didn't want to disappoint you and let you down because I support what you do. And I think it's a great thing and a great platform for our people to be able to show their talents.
Yeah, he did you know, in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I'm honored to definitely be here with these two brothers. Definitely have followed both of their careers and their works. Haven't had a chance to meet either one of them. Well, I think I met Danny briefly, or I was in the same vicinity with him before. But yeah.
Well, all right. I think we can talk. Everybody
doing it.
You say what?
Oh, what?
I said I had a good time doing it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry, my microphone was on some Teddy Riley-ness, but I mean, we got it.
You good?
Wow. Peace, y'all. Right. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Live.
Whoop.